Hello and welcome this lovely afternoon here in the UK. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're calling from. In fact, let's start the chat off in the comments on LinkedIn if you can. Whereabouts are you calling from here today? Where you're joining Stephen James and myself in our very first Master Your Strengths episode. So Steve is calling from the Donkey Sanctuary, and we are so delighted to have Steve with us here to share all about his strengths profile expertise. We were having a quick chat just before the session, and we're pretty sure Steve could take my place here as well. So a very warm welcome to you, Steve. So if comment please where you're calling from, and we can feedback on that as we go. So we'd love to hear your questions as we start to understand more about how Steve's been using strengths profile at the Donkey Sanctuary. For now, Steve, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I've had a background in learning development, education and learning development for the whole of my working life. Started off as a teacher, and I must say I would have relished the strengths profile. I taught in a secondary school. I would have relished the strengths profile at the time. So many times I heard people say, children being told, or young adults being told, you can't do this, you're no good at that. And this would have been a terrific tool. It was I was too early in my career then for it.
Do you remember, Steve, what you were advised, your career advisors to be or do? I know mine was a nurse.
My career advice actually put me straight in that education training background. So it teed me up nicely.
Oh, fantastic.
Once I left education, moved across in the learning development environment. I sold my soul to the devil and worked within financial services, and remained there through a number of companies, culminating for over nigh on 30 years, I think. It culminated in work with Aviva, which is where we first crossed paths. I think you were trailblazing strengths profile within Aviva.
We were indeed, and it was so far back. Aviva was called Murray Junior at the time, I believe.
Yes,
that far back. So, Steve, you were at Aviva for 15 years, and you've been at the Donkey Sanctuary now for just over 8, haven't you? So, tell us a little bit more around the Donkey Sanctuary, because I know the audience here today are probably as interested in the donkeys, to be honest, as they are in strengths profile.
Yeah, indeed. Well, when I first saw the job adverts, the first thing that sprung to my mind was, why does the Donkey Sanctuary need a sort of head of L&D? And I did a little bit of exploring around the company accounts, posted company accounts, and then I started to get an idea of the complexity of the organization. At the time, 8 years ago, we had 450 staff worldwide. We have 650 now. The organization operates internationally. We have centers in Europe, that includes Ireland, Italy, and Spain, plus extended presences in Africa, a number of countries in Africa, and Mexico. And we do a lot of work with other non-government organizations and charities in places like Nepal. And we helped out significantly after the Nepal earthquake. And of course, one of the primary means of transport when your infrastructure goes down was the supply of donkeys on there. We have about half a dozen farms in the UK where we host our donkeys. And in addition to that, we have 6 donkey-assisted therapy, DAT centres across the UK, where they work with children, young adults with additional needs, and specific user groups who benefit from interaction with donkeys. And that's that to me is the showpiece of the Donkey Sanctuary. That's where the magic really happens. But more on this later as to how we align strengths profile with that type of work.
So, what about the donkeys themselves, in terms of how many donkeys are on your books?
Oh, we have about 2,500 on site in our farms. We have then I think the total goes up to about 6,000 that are held in holding bays, holding centres, and what we really encourage is the movement of donkeys into foster homes, into guardian homes. So we try and broker that arrangement then, where we get the donkeys in once they've had a fitness assessment and assessment, to be able to go back out into the public, and then we have a guardian scheme where we can, subject to land and stabling and everything else, we can put people in line with the donkeys, in touch with the donkeys.
Brilliant, thank you. And finally, on that piece, because I know we've got people all around the globe listening in, Steve, to hear around your work with us, and from the UK to Sydney, and obviously your colleagues on the call as well, listening in to do all of their work justice. Because of course, it's not just yourself; you've got a team with you there, haven't you? Louise,
Yeah.
and Dave, and I think it was Tina.
Yeah, we have 4 of us who are qualified strength practitioners and have been for a number of years. And I think what we enjoy is bringing some of the sessions together where we take a redacted profile and we look at how we interpret that. So we gauge whether our interpretation is in accord with the others. And there's always some of those nuances that you miss first time around that maybe somebody else has picked up on. So for us, it's a nice active promotion of the use of the strengths profile as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, that kicks us off, I guess, into kind of the journey that you've been on, Steve, doesn't it? So I guess take us back to how it started.
I think when we first looked at the introduction of strengths profile, it was against the background of what was needed. And I think we were looking to really embed staff engagement as well. We wanted that improved, and we wanted the quality of the one-to-one conversations between managers and staff to take another level, really. And we wanted that quality element on there. It's very easy to go into task assignment, and that's it. But we know, and at the background of my thinking, my strategy was to get that quality of conversation improved, so that the staff start to think and understand and work more to strengths, and get a working understanding of it, and to see the impact of it. The key for me as well, the language had to be right. And that is really, I think, one of the key elements. The language is applicable to a range of roles here at the Donkey Sanctuary. We have farm workers, we have farm managers, farm grooms, we have accountants, we have scientists in our research, we have marketing people, we have the hospitality side. The restaurant hosts 400,000 visitors a year.
Wow.
So with that spread of functional groups, the language had to be right, and that's a big challenge to get that right across everyone.
Yeah, something that's authentic, I guess, for everybody as well.
Yeah, and they had to see the relevance in it. And it wasn't, I have a little bugbear, but it's not something that put me in a box and that's where you stay. It wasn't something that described my behavior as a color that I can relate to. It really ticked the box, and I would say it is the most impactful tool that I've encountered in my career, and the way we were able to bring it into the Donkey Sanctuary. It had to link as well with developing a coaching culture, and that links into our performance management process now, our regular check-in process, which we've just redefined. And again, over the last 2 years, 2+ years, 2.5 years, since the start of lockdown, the staff well-being has been right at the forefront of what we're doing. And I think I mentioned to you prior to going online that coaching is the doorway to that well-being. And the first start of coaching is the language and the process around the strengths profiling.
Yeah. Steve, can I just go one of the things you've just mentioned there, which is performance management? A lot of people struggle, organisations struggle with how to make it formal, or how to sort of not put people off in that very formal process. Have you got any sort of smiling? You kind of, we had the same challenge maybe, but any tips for the listeners?
Yeah, and this is quite timely because we're just doing a rollout of our updated performance management piece. We have adopted a regular check-in process, so it's not a end of year, mid-year review, and always looking back. It's a lot more in the moment. So a quarterly check-in process, and we have a very simple framework around start, stop, continue.
Mhm.
And again, the language is very important on this one, and people can see what they need to start. There's a few question marks about what we need to stop, but that may well be taking too much work on, particularly over lockdown.
Yeah.
And what we want to continue. So we've simplified the process and brought that in. And again, typically, the performance management piece historically would have been focusing on weaknesses. Now, if you approach it from a strengths profile, it's utter madness to expect people to spend more time doing something they're not particularly good at and really de-energizes them.
Yeah.
How do you build engagement on that side? And it's really tapped in now, far better looking at through the lens of either realized, unrealized strengths or that appropriate use of learned behaviors.
Yeah.
So for me, it makes sense, and the traction we're getting on that is certainly building momentum now.
Brilliant. And Steve, can I ask, in terms of the managers, how have you supported them to have these conversations? Because it doesn't always come naturally, that shift in culture, does it, to switch from one to the other?
No, and I think first of all, it's a manager profile, so they can complete their individual profiles. One of the team then would pick up the debrief.
Mm-hmm.
As part of that debrief would be how they see that impacting on their team, and usually it is followed up with a team session, and bringing them together, sharing their strengths profiles. And I think it's very important to get them out there, get them publicized, get them known. And then some of the exercises that you've already constructed around, come to me if.
Mm-hmm.
And it really hones in that understanding of the profiles. It gets them to put it into their language, gets them to put it into quite a practical application as well.
Yeah, and Jodie's just mentioned how much she loves the start, stop, continue, and I guess it's use of really easy tools and language for managers as well. You're not teaching them the sort of the strengths profile model of development with 60 strengths. You're teaching them to ask a couple of really good questions.
Yeah, and that and again that start, stop, continue. What we're finding is managers are asking, there must be something more. It can't be this simple, but in practice it is. And we're finding a lot more traction on it now.
Brilliant. So Steve, going back a few years, because I know that humility sits reasonably high for you, but I'm stripping you of your humility strength just for today. You know what I'm going to ask, don't you? So royalty came to the Donkey Sanctuary in recognition of the work that you've been doing in learning and development. Tell our audience a bit around that.
Yeah, it was I suppose the foundation stages of this, and it was bringing together a skills analysis across the organization for certain groups, and DAT, our donkey assisted therapy centers, were right at the forefront of this, and they've been terrific exponents of the use and application of the strengths profile. So it was a combination of skills analysis, talent mapping, identifying where people are, and strengths profiling. And we submitted that program of work to the Princess Royal Training Award scheme, which is part of the City and Guilds. And we've been successful in getting awards for our leadership program and our application of strengths profiling.
Brilliant. And I know in that one of our case studies we've got for you, it's got a lovely picture of you taking that award from the royalty. So congratulations to you and the team, the wider team, Louise and Dave.
Just to mention that the team are back up there. Louise and Tina going back to the award ceremony on the 28th of April for our response to COVID, how we've changed our response to COVID. And a lot of that is around the coaching aspects, the introduction of well-being, and as Tina and Louise know, it's that open doors with the strengths profiling to start with.
Yeah. Is there a particular angle with strengths profile and well-being that you've been taking?
It's really looking at where people are spending their time. What is it that is de-energizing them, and are there alternatives around it? And something that's come up throughout the lockdown, there are people who have accepted a great deal of work, and they put the pressure on themselves without thinking around delegation.
Yeah.
And looking at and that lends itself then to complementary strengths with others. And I always mention that I do a lot of scan reading, so it's very easy for little bits of detail to slip through. Louise's key strength is realized strength is around detail. So it's that sort of balance and partnership working that has allowed us to help embed this. So looking for those complementary skills from others, complementary strengths from others that they could allocate certain bits of work to.
Yeah. And Steve, I wonder, just something's popped into my head around the charity work that you do. I mean, we know today's been a popular session because everyone wants to hear around, the great work that you've been doing. Does that mean that people take on more than they perhaps, they really want to support the work and value and the legacy piece of what you do?
Certainly a high degree of legacy on there, and they will take on more. They have a great deal of thought around the care of, obviously, the care of the animals, care of the donkeys, and will go that extra mile regardless for them. And I suppose this is a way of getting them to work, not smarter, but work more collaboratively. And that's where the strengths profile really does come into its own. It's looking for others that can help with the end result on it.
Yeah. It's having that light bulb moment, isn't it, when you're caught in that scenario and you just keep saying yes to things, and those learned behaviours, I guess, where they're mounting up year by year, and then suddenly having that moment.
Yeah, and again, then the quality of conversations. One of the elements that we were trying to build there was trust, and that follows through to the delegation piece as well. Yeah. It's taking some of these tasks that I can do, but I know somebody else could do as well, so I can pass those over, allowing you then to concentrate on more impactive activities.
Yeah, you've just mentioned a key word there. So something I wanted to sort of share or to chat with you around was the impact that you're seeing. And I guess the awards that you've mentioned are already a huge part of how you're seeing that, properly come to fruition and seeing that impact with the individuals. But what else can you share about the impact that you've seen, Steve?
Yeah, well, we look at it typically on the 4 stages. That's reaction, the embedded learning, how behavior has changed, and the organizational impact. The easy one right up front is the reaction. I don't know anybody who hasn't said, "Oh wow, that really that's got me." I can see myself in there, which is there's nobody said that. Oh, no, that's completely that's not me. I don't see it. I really don't. So that reaction, that immediate reaction piece, is the first bit of feedback. There's no kickback from that one. People seem then to start to understand how they're applying some of those strengths. And that's where that learning builds up. And I think that's still work in progress. Individuals understanding more about their strengths, and I'm now working with some managers on that more conscious use of the strengths, about where the position their strengths have had in getting them to where they are today. So it's having that clearer understanding of, that's how I apply it, or how you apply your strengths to certain situations within the team. What do you tap into when you're communicating with your team? So important now in lockdown, where we have the virtual environment, about how do you build that level of communication that you used to have in the face-to-face through the virtual environment.
Yeah, and I guess for communicating as well, they're so different, aren't they, the strengths? So, here we are demonstrating our spotlight today, but if we had listener as our top strength, we might look very different in that communication, or, just in terms of team, how we show up in our teams is very different, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that openness about being able to share it as well is a key factor in bringing teams together as well. And it is that learning piece. It is that conscious understanding, and then that's a work in progress, and always will be with the throughput that we have. As I say, 400 plus profiles conducted and debriefed to date, and we see that building. And I must say the introduction of the starter program has helped, because we use the introductory profile and then the starter as an interim.
Nice.
So from a cost perspective, it is immensely affordable, and will continue to be so as well. So it's a nice little interim reminder for them as well.
Yeah, and I guess you can take that as a top up, can't they, if people want to retake it in a few months' time, just to check in.
Yeah, and then behaviour. We are looking to include one-to-one discussions more. We're seeing that come through more. The DAT centres have they have their regular conversations, and strengths form part of that. And again, it's about using their strengths rather than focusing on the weaknesses, about what they can do and pairing up. And then that organisational impact. The Donkey Sanctuary wants to be regarded as a well-being organisation, and this is just that direct link to it, and that improved staff engagement. So from a strategic level, those two elements, although they're short statements, have a massive amount of work that goes behind it. The other side, on a practical note, you mentioned it earlier about going through a restructure. And I think we've had discussion previously when we met up, as part of the restructure process, support was offered for staff who are going through the interview process, some of whom hadn't been through an interview ever in their working life. And we had something like 20 staff who accepted this offer of support. 4 retired, 4 left the charity, and 12 secured roles in this structure, in the new structure, or at similar or higher grades as well. And we used the strengths profile to answer questions like, what makes you suitable for this role? What do you bring to this role? And previously, people have real difficulty articulating that. And this language just gave them the confidence to go through. And actually, this is me. And I remember a colleague who always said, he challenged me the first time I rolled this out, and he said, Steve, surely self-praise is no praise. And I said, it's not a case of praising, it's about being confident in what you're good at. This is you, and shy away from it. This is what you bring to the party. So for that particular piece, and I mentioned one individual there, 36 years at the Donkey Sanctuary, never had a formal interview. And she was very nervous going into this. Had a strengths profile. We got her to articulate things, turn some of the strengths into her language, and I'm really pleased to say she's secured a role on it. And that's it. That's impact. That is impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steve, it reminds me, I guess it's calling on your educator background, I guess, there, because we, as you know, we use it a lot in the university space for students, because starting from that blank sheet of paper to describe yourself, when humility, as most of our practitioners will know, is the most common strength in the world still. It's just a hard place to start, isn't it? Is there anything you can share around what those workshops look like, or what those conversations were able to bring?
Yeah, and what we tend to do is group a couple of the strengths, so they're able to link them about what they bring. We've got the language there, and then get them to articulate to it. So I just take a step back and say, right, what makes you suitable for this role in the charity? What would you bring that is different to anybody else to this role? And that's it. I just let them go. Initially, I don't know, there's that degree of silence, and that is a cultural piece as well. I think if you asked one of our American cousins about this, they'd be a lot more forthcoming in what they bring, that personal attribute.
Yeah, seeing it on paper helps, though, doesn't it? Talk about it. See, we could talk about SP and the Donkey Sanctuary for a lot longer, but I'm just conscious I'd love to hear just sort of future plans for you and your organisation.
And a lot of it revolves around strategic intent again. We're started to introduce this now into the executive team. And I think, as I do, if people are seeing this mirrored in the executive team, the higher management team on that, then the language starts to become common language across the organization. And brings it in. And there's been recent meetings where the introduction of the name, or just the mention of the name Strengths Profile, has prompted very supportive discussions on there. So we're looking to introduce it at the executive team. There's also plans to include within the recruitment process, and this is not about selecting through, effectively selecting the roles through strengths, but looking at the match of strengths against the role. And it gives a much more deeper insight into someone, rather than the typical competency-based, give me an example when, which we know can be rehearsed and delivered. But questions like, what would be a great day at work for you? Then let them go. You can hear it in their voice, in the tone. You can see it in the body language. They start to come forward. There's no hesitation. They're not looking for examples.
No.
So
yeah. It's that range of questions, isn't it? Certainly in our recruitment world, yes, tell me about a time does come up, but also, what might you do in the future if this situation arises? So, and then trying to call on those unrealized strengths, or what might someone say about you, Steve? And again, you're not really thinking about cognitively as such around the kind of question, but more around just the response, your natural response.
Yeah, so we're looking to include that. There will be a mix of the competencies questions, competency-based questions, and strengths. But to get it in there, and I think we will get a much stronger match of individuals to roles as a result of it. And it certainly be the definer. And the other key bit to build on the success is to get more practitioners. And I know I'm talking with the head of DAT about expanding our practitioner network into DAT as well, to get them up and running. So they're not reliant on just the three of us. They could be self-sufficient across the 6 locations.
That would be amazing, because I know you've 400 or so people have now completed a strengths profile that your team have been responsible for, and most of those have had their debrief, haven't they, over the years?
Yeah. So as you say, we follow up once we send the profile link out. We follow up each individual afterwards for a feedback session. I think other than the potential lockdown or connectivity issues, they've been completed to a T. But the other thing in terms of lockdown, just mention it, the strengths profile debrief really lends itself as well to a virtual environment. So it provides us with, from my perspective, it provides us with a sort of longevity of delivery. So we know we can deliver this face to face, which is what we did previously. We know we can deliver it virtually, and the impact is equal there, if not a bit more intense from a virtual perspective.
Yeah, it's just different, isn't it? I think at the end of the day, the big takeaways of that, how I show up, isn't it? And actually how I show up virtually is as important now, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's building, and of course we're adapting now to the new ways of working and hybrid working, and we'll be looking at the sort of strengths we'll be looking for in that hybrid environment as well. So that's a bit of work in progress. We're early doors exploring how we can make this more applicable to that environment.
Yeah. Brilliant. Steve, thank you. We've just about hit our time. I can't believe 30 minutes has gone so quickly. It would be great. Is there, and I didn't warn you on this, so apologies on this, but maybe sort of a couple of takeaways for the audience, you know, if they're starting the strengths profile, or just you as a practitioner, what you just love about it.
Yeah. I think you need to be resilient in terms of you're going to get hit back from some areas. As with a lot of things, find your supporters and start with them. I found DAT, the donkey assisted therapy, such close links with them. We brought that into the framework for them, and they have been a terrific supporter. So, you know, look for somewhere where you're going to be knocking on an open door, really. And yeah, it was step by step, and until you reach that tipping point now. And I think finally have hit that tipping point where there are more people now who know and understand about strengths profiling in the donkey sanctuary than don't.
Yeah.
So it is a case, you know, find your supporters, use those people to help you market it. And that's something I'm not very good at. That's something I need to address, is how we market it. And you mentioned the humility there around the training awards and things. I need to be, I think, a lot more proactive about marketing the impact on this.
Yeah. Well, that's playing to strengths, though, Steve. You know, you're playing to your strengths of legacy and all the amazing work you're doing. So thank you for myself for sharing your donkey sanctuary success. Thank you on behalf of our audience. Thank you for being with us. And we very much look forward to all of us continuing to hear all about you and your journey. And many of us are sharing our donkey names. We've got Valentine and water going on in the. I'm sure you get it all the time. Do you know my donkey? Do you know my donkey?
Yes,
so thank you, Steve, so much for your time today, and we look forward to hearing.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Trudy.
You take care. Bye.
Bye.